So you have
I got my second on Saturday because I'm
did you?
old.
We went off to, they loaded a bunch of appointments onto the state site. So we went to a DMAP site in West Kingston, and there were hundreds of people there. It ran so beautifully. It was really impressive, the job that they did.
I'm sorry to interrupt. So now it's live on YouTube. Yay. And then Millie,
We're recording now.
recording now.
Thank you.
I'll turn on the Times feed and start the meeting. Give me a second. All right. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the New Shoreham Town Council meeting for Monday, March 29th, 2021. The New Shoreham Town Council is meeting via telecommunications pursuant to State of Rhode Island Executive Order 20-46 dated June 12th, 2020. We don't have the bandwidth to support a video link for members of the general public. So to participate or raise your hand on your phone, you press *9 and mute and unmute by pressing *6. I will ask everybody to make sure that they're muted until they're called upon to speak, in which case, when you're called on to speak, if you'd like to do that, I'll ask you to just say your name and let us know what's on your mind. So with that being said, we'll begin with the budget work session. Mary Ann, do you have any changes to that budget you want to start with?
Sure. A memo was sent to you folks. It came out really late this afternoon. I do apologize for that, but we're just getting numbers, as we say, hot off the press. And I'm not sure if any of you have had the opportunity to take a look at that memo. What we found out is that a health insurance premium, which will be available probably the second week of April, and based on speaking with the trust, who is the town carrier, it looks like any kind of increase for fiscal 2022 has been eliminated. This is resulting in a savings of $27,386 from the initial budget. So I know you folks had talked extensively about community service, and based on our last budget hearing, and it looks like you do have $27,000 that you can reallocate at this point to community service. You also have a request from the chamber. Lars did send a letter to you folks. I think you received it sometime last week. And also in the memo that Amy did provide you, we are exceeding the tax cap by 1.9%. There are about 4 reasons why you can. And based on preliminary information that we have submitted to Department of Revenue, the increase in debt service is the one that is right now an allowable increase that they most likely will agree to. And to exceed and to fund any additional beside the 27,000, it increased the amount of the cap. We have nothing, and this is going to sound weird, nothing in the budget that will allow us. Some of the other reasons will be a non-property tax revenue. If there's a loss that is certified by the Department of Revenue, we will also be submitting that. Debt service is another one. And another one is what they call a substantial growth in the tax base as a result of major new construction that necessitates either significant infrastructure or school housing. When you usually see something like that, it's usually something where there's a development that goes in, where you have about 50 new homes being constructed. And with those 50 new homes, you're going to have an increase of 2 kids per school, 2 kids per house. So that's 100 additional students in the school. Or also because you have 50 new homes on an average of 3 to 4 people living in that homes, an additional 200 people in population. Therefore, you may have to increase staffing as relates to public safety. So I just want to qualify that to you folks in that regard. Amy's been working very closely with the Department of Revenue on this particular issue. And like I said, she just got an answer literally 10 minutes ago from the Department of Revenue. Amy, is there anything you want to add at this point?
Sure. Just to elaborate a little bit, what I was working on, or what I've been working on with Department of Revenue, is those circumstances that are much more unique to Block Island. We're not having huge subdivisions coming in, but really explaining some of the constraints that we're up against, particularly with the ever-growing impact of the summer season, and in particular, as it relates to our health services and our fire and our rescue, and some of those real impact-driven areas. And at this point, they are not inclined to view our situation in the light of those exemptions. Obviously, this is not a final determination, but it's not something that they feel is consistent at first blush. So those are the conversations that Mary Ann's alluding to, and what we've been discussing with them. And I know none of you are going to like that, but that's what we're working on. Their answers obviously fit into a cookie cutter mold, and we're trying to demonstrate that they don't apply. But so far, we haven't been successful in those conversations.
Also on tonight's agenda, it's my understanding that the council also received a letter from the Chamber of Commerce that you folks may be interested in discussing. And I think Lars is here this evening. He did ask at the last budget hearing last week that we hold off discussing the chamber until he provides you with that letter and had the opportunity to come back to you folks. And it's also my understanding that the council, based on an email I've received from one councilor and also conversation with other councilors, that you may like to revisit capital. So with that, I suggest you, do you want to start with the chamber first and then go to the community service?
Lars is here.
I am, sir, yes.
Okay, Lars.
Trying to speak.
Hold on, Lars.
Mark's trying to
Mark, you're muted. Mark, unmute. Lars, I'm going to give Mark an opportunity here for a second.
One quick
Please
question.
do.
If we just had a roughly $27,000 windfall in one way, shape, or form, we don't have to spend it, correct?
Correct.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yes. Oh, am I off mute? Correct.
Thanks, Mark. Okay, Lars, go ahead. Thank you.
Well, we are looking for some help with the funding of the 4 tourism ambassadors that work out of this office during the summer. They work for the entire community. We plan on having them here 7 days a week. They answer any and all questions about Block Island, where to go, what to eat, what to do. In the past, we looked at the years 2017, 2018, and 2019, and they were the salaries and the payroll tax evened out at $25,500. Our first stop was at the Tourism Council. They were generous and funded half of that. And so while the chamber is still rebuilding itself financially, I have to say, Cindy Lasser did a great job of getting us on even footing, but we're still building to get our finances in a strong, steady, reliable position. So this year we're looking for the town to fund the remaining half of the, $10,000 of the remaining amount that needs to be funded towards those salaries. And we've also asked for some rent relief on the building, which would be $10,000 for 2021 and 2022.
Thank you, Lars. Can you refresh my memory as to what the town provided last year?
The town provided $10,000 in rent relief that's still lasting until June, the end of June, until the end of the fiscal year.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Councilors have any questions? Sven?
Yeah, real
Yeah, I
quickly,
have a
Mary Ann
question.
or Amy, that 10,000 rent relief is now in the budget as stands, right?
Yes, that has carried forward to the proposed 22.
So already, Lars, just so you know, the 10,000 2022 is already in the budget. The additional $10,000 request is not in the budget as a whole.
That's my understanding, yes.
Yep.
Thank you. Any other councilors want to?
I was just looking for clarity on that same topic. I believe it's shown as, I think it's shown on both sides of the ledger, isn't it, Amy?
Yes, it is. We recognize both the rent as revenue to the town and the support of the visitor center as an expenditure. So
And
both
that's just for That's just for clarity. If anybody sees the 10,000 for support, that is the rent. That isn't an additional 10. You just don't get confused by it.
Yes, thank you, Martha. That's right.
Thank you, Lars. Any other counselors? Lars, can I ask?
Okay.
Go ahead, Martha.
No, go ahead.
Lars, can I ask what the funding from the Tourism Council has been in the past?
Last year it was 10,000. I'm going to have to go back. I used to cover those meetings. It seems like a long time ago, but it was definitely $10,000 last year, which carries over to this year. I mean, we're still in that current fiscal year. And previous to that, I mean, if you go back a decade, it was 30,000. But in recent years, it's been less than that. I think it was 20, and then last year it was 10. That may be corrected. I don't want to state that as fact, but that's my recollection.
Is there anybody from the Tourism Council here today? Okay, hearing nothing.
Yeah, I've got a couple of things then, Andre.
Yeah, go ahead, Martha.
They're following the same thing. I think, Sven, you were on the Tourism Council also, were you not?
Yes.
Because I was on back when the structure was different and there was a council rep, and then I was off for a while, and after I got off the council, I was back on as an appointed person by the council, and I know we provided more, between 20 and 30. That's the number that I remember. And sometime in between, whenever I don't know when that ceased happening. And I will just I know it's not up to us to change what the Tourism Council does or votes upon, but that's always bothered me because and I found this. I was trying to clean out my car the other day, something I've always held on to. This Tourism Council has 4 statutory charges, and one of them is to aid the town of New Shoreham in resolving problems which may arise due to the growth in tourism industry and to improve the quality of life in New Shoreham. And that one is always like, everybody says, oh, it's not our job. Well, yeah, it is. And we have one visitor center. I was on the Tourism Council when the tourism office moved to the airport, and it was kind of a leap of faith that it was going to be a tourism gateway at the airport. I mean, I go to the airport a couple times a month at least for pick up prescriptions, and I've never seen any kind of presence at all up there. And I don't know. I think it's time we went back and looked at this. That's not going to solve the problem for this year for the visitor center. And I do think it was a smart thing to split this out and make it separate and apart from the chamber, because I think that has caused some confusion in the past. But I've really got just the information that I had, and also we have to keep this on the radar for maybe there's something that the legislation that needs to be clarified or revisited, because they don't seem to want to follow that track.
Thank you.
Andre, can I add one thing to that?
Absolutely.
Martha, thank you for that. We did, I get sometimes mixed up myself. We did create a separate LLC. It's a Visitor Center LLC that is designed specifically to pay the salaries of these ambassadors. So technically, the money is not going, the tourism money as well, is not going to the chamber. It's going to Visitor Center LLC, which will do the payroll and all of that for the tourism ambassadors. So I'm not technically here as the chamber. I'm here as the representative of the Visitor Center LLC, because we wanted to keep those monies separate.
Thank you, Lars. Go ahead, Sven.
Yeah, real quickly, just saying a couple of points. Martha, I was on it, as you said, and I do remember the numbers being in that 20 to 30 range in the early days. It seems over the last 5 years, Amy probably has the actual numbers in front of her, but over the last 5 years, those numbers have dropped precipitously. And when I did sit in on the tourism meeting the other day, since nobody is here right now from tourism, they were very appreciative and very positive towards the move of this visitor center LLC, or whatever it's actually called. And for everybody in the audience, that was really done because there was a lot of folks who, or a number of folks who were concerned about, you know, the ambassadors working for the chamber, which in theory was a membership-based private organization, yet supporting the town. So it gets a little murky. And I think Lars, and I compliment Lars, really figured out a way to end that murkiness and truly build a standalone interface to the people coming in. I happen to be with Martha on this a lot, where I think that this is a critical part of tourism. I think it's part of what the Tourism Council's charter is. I understand that we're all, and I'm stressing now in the next hour, we're all incredibly stressed by tight budgets. And so I think this is a conundrum. I feel very badly for Cindy in the past and Lars now that this seems to be a hot potato every year. So we've got to just fix this thing in the future, but this is a tough one. Thank you.
Lars, can you answer for me? Visitor centers all over the state, who are they run by?
Oh, it's an amalgam of different, some chambers, some are completely separate. Yeah, we've looked into that. It's really any kind of configuration that you could think of. It's done that way.
So what does that
I was
mean?
actually talking to some some cities and towns it's run by the chamber. Some are completely separate. Some don't have one at all that have chambers, but they don't have a visitor center. It's any kind of configuration that you could think of.
Lars, is there a
It's not all one or the
denominator?
other.
Is there a common
I'm sorry,
denominator
sir?
in funding?
In the limited look that I've done, I may say limited. I did not find a common denominator. No. I mean, in the bigger areas, there definitely are visitor centers, but they're not all run by chambers.
Are they run by tourism councils?
That I can't say.
Does anybody know the answer to that?
It can't be all by all volunteers like wonderful Elva. It's got to be, money's got to be coming somewhere.
Elva. Yep.
Yeah.
Council, what do you want to do about this?
If I can, Andre, I would suggest that if we can hold it just for the rest of the discussion, because I know that there's limited availability of funds. I think last time we discussed, and Amy, thank you for all the work you've been doing over the last week. I think we've discussed with the community support group many different pushes and pulls. So I'd almost rather be able to look at it in the conundrum before necessarily approving one and not, then not having the money for later. Is that okay?
Yeah, that makes sense. Go ahead, Keith.
That makes sense to me. I also think, I think it's wonderful that this sort of LLC has been spun off. I appreciate the conversation that the Tourism Council and the Chamber have been having, but I have to say, as a new, I know that this conversation has been going on for a while, but I sort of feel like the council or town should have a voice in this planning and conversation somehow, because we're being asked to kick in a substantial amount of money, and we're being presented sort of with what decisions have been made by others. If we have, as Marianne and Amy have said, limited flexibility, I'd be hard pressed to say that this is an area where I feel compelled to provide additional funding when there are so many other significant needs that, at least for me, are more compelling for the town budget. So that's just my opinion.
Go ahead, Mark.
I couldn't agree with Keith more. I think we should get in a room with Tourism Council, with Chamber, lock the door, turn the thermostat up, and discuss all of these things. Like, I don't agree when a Tourism Council director tells people to come here on their bicycles when our roads are unsafe. things like that. We have to all get on the same page, not with just funding, but a whole bunch of a menu of other issues.
Yeah, I don't think you'd have to turn the heat up in that room.
Well, I do want to say the Tourism Council and the Chamber are not at odds at all. They were very generous this year. I want to be very clear about that.
Right. Okay, so you want to just move on to the other parts of the budget and, you know, see what's left?
Fortunately for Lars, let's view it in the light of everything.
All right. Martha, did you have a question?
No,
Okay,
not anymore.
you lit up. Okay.
Yeah, actually, I do have one other thing. This is just an information question, and I'm not expecting anybody at the table to know this off the top of their head. Does anybody remember how much of the landing fee we get?
We being the town?
Yeah.
Amy?
She's right, not off the top of my head, but if you, I might be able to come back in a minute with it.
Yeah, because it's in the PUC sub-agreement, I think. And I always get the number wrong.
Thank you, Martha. David Lewis, I see your hands up. You just need to unmute. There you go. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for recognizing me. I just wanted to say one thing to the council and to all the listeners that are listening in. 2 years ago, in March, the same budget meetings when the community support was being discussed on 2 successive nights, most everything that's been said tonight was said 2 years ago. And specifically, not that I'm looking for any credit, but one of the things I said to the council was, it's time to help get off dead center and grant some rent relief this year. I was in support, and tasked the town manager to go off, and he's got the next year to solve this problem. Well, he was here for 9 of those 12, the last of the subsequent 9 months. For the subsequent 12 months, he was here for 9 of them. Then COVID struck, as well as Ed's resignation, and we would all like to pretend that that's been a lost year, and in many respects it has. The reality is, the second point I would make is that in December 2021, January 2021, when the council was reappointing 3 of the several tourism councilors, you may all remember that there was this internal spat going on within the board. And the council wisely chose not to take sides, but to reappoint the 3 directors whose terms were expiring and let them sort it out internally. I think that was a very generous move on the part of the council, and obviously you should have earned some goodwill from that. So that said, I support entirely what Mark said in his concept of getting in the same room and really working it out. Obviously, whatever decision you make today probably cannot be changed. Now's the time to start working on fiscal year 2023, and it begins now, not next February and March. I would make the argument that the council has earned a lot of goodwill, and there's always political payback for being gracious and generous when it comes to appointing people to fulfill community roles. I would think that the council has earned the benefit of the doubt in any meeting on financial matters where the things that we've been discussing for the last 2 years are brought to bear. And I would urge you to take that into your discussions with them. Thank you, Mark, for making the specific point that you did. Thank you.
Thank you, David.
Sorry, that was me. I hit the wrong number.
Thank you, David. Much appreciated. All right. Any other questions regarding Lars's letter or tourism, chamber tourism situation? Funding. Okay. Seeing none from the crowd, from the guests, I see Keith's got your hand up.
I just had a couple of more general budget questions, perhaps before we do the community support things that, I just would ask your indulgence for 2 minutes to just ask a couple of questions.
Take 5.
Okay. One is, I was noticing for the library, there's a roughly $60,000 grant on page 6 of 22 in line 4010, and another one for $90,000 in line 4070. And I'm just wondering, is that additional money that the library receives, or is it used to offset our appropriation to the library? So in other words, is the library's bottom line, whatever it is, 500 something thousand, or is it the bottom line that we see in our pages plus 150?
Amy, I think I know the answer, but I would, it's been 15 years, you can run with it.
I'm going to start with neither, Keith.
That's what I thought.
Okay. I'm not picking on the library, by the way. It's just one of those things that sticks out to you when you're reading this.
That's okay. It's a great question. On page 6, we'll start with, this is the state aid revenue coming into the town. The first number that you referenced, $63,325. This is reimbursement from the state for what they call library housing. It offsets our debt service for the last renovation of the library, and it's specifically tied to the borrowing that the town did to complete that project.
Gotcha.
The other line that you mentioned, $91,679, that is state library aid, and that's the state's contribution to the care and support of the library. So it is an offset in a way to the $564,226. Kristen mentioned the other night that when she certifies those numbers for the state, she identifies primarily salaries and benefits as what the state is contributing towards. The other part of this that I will only take 30 seconds on is that the library is also supported by the trustees. And so there is additional funding that works through the trustees, primarily grants, donations, and things like that, that's used to support the facility and the operations. So when we look at the library in its entirety, it is actually a bigger number than we show here in the general fund.
Okay, thank you. The other one is in the GIS technology section and on page 17. What is equipment replacement is up about $35,000, and I'm wondering what that's going for. Are those commitments that we've already made? What's it for?
So if you go back to the original memo I sent to you folks, as it relates to technology and the fact that we were seriously lagging behind the mainland, it would be for equipment that we will be placing in the upcoming year. We do have a schedule of things that time is lapsing, that they are at the end of their life, so that we will be starting to replace that. It's something that we put in place this year, and we hope to continue to update in the years going forward. We've had some situations where we've had equipment and servers that were at life end, and we haven't replaced them because the funding wasn't there. So this is the initial step to get us on track.
So it's, for example, replacing computers in town hall. That's the thing.
Yeah, it could be desktops or throughout the town. It could be firewalls. It could be servers. It could be anything. Yeah.
Great. And what about the increase?
Software.
Well, I was just about to ask the software question because I think part of that might be the licensing and maintenance contracts. Is that right? The $16,000 increase there?
Yes, that's correct. Okay. And we have a detailed list of what makes up that number.
Great. Terrific. Thank you, Andre. I appreciate it. I just wondered about those things. Oh, actually, sorry, one more. When was the last time we increased liquor permit fees, taxi license fees, rooming house fees?
So Keith, you called me about that question today. So I did spend some time working with Molly. Some of the licenses are state driven by statute. Others are not. Some of them we have not increased, as Molly said, in a period, some time. A lot of these licenses have already been issued for the upcoming fiscal year, or then they've been
Calendar
issued
year. Yeah.
calendar year. So what we will do is during the summer months into the fall, we'll take a look at those licenses and we'll start surveying surrounding communities and may come to the council with a recommendation of changing those if necessary. But
If
we
I
will
may-
not do that in time for this budget.
Why is that? Because we're talking about half the fiscal year, potentially, when those are renewed in January.
I don't see us having the time to get these, to take a look and come to the council and make a recommendation to increase those licenses.
I just feel like when you
Unless the council would like to.
when you look across the budget, particularly in the areas of public safety and healthcare, and you see the kind of impact that alcohol related activities, if you will, how much of that is driven, how much of our expense is driven there. I got to tell you, I think it's pretty important to start. We can't do it with the moped operators. I understand we have an agreement, which just sticks in my craw, but really, I think any community looks for an opportunity to do their best to export some of the revenue burden, and this is one of the few places that we have to do it. So I would say I'd like to look at it sooner rather than later.
I can bring that forward, but just so you know, and I'm not trying to be argumentative here,
No.
the liquor licenses, which adds up to about $58,000 for the community, we're at the state max.
Okay.
Okay. We do have some victualling license that serve liquors and don't serve liquors. The revenue, the fees associated with that we collect is $3,200 on that. That's one that has been raised in a while. Another one is victualling that does not serve liquor. We haven't raised that in a while. We collect $625. Hotel and inn licenses, we haven't increased that in a while. That's $18,000. If you want us to come forward with something, we'll be more than happy to do it. But the actual liquor license piece is based on state statute, and we're at the max.
Okay. Thank you.
Sven.
Keith is pushing on quote unquote revenue in order to rebalance or be able to save whatever. And Amy, you and I have talked about this in the past. I've mentioned it to Marianne. I would really love to kick off, is maybe the right word for it, or continue work on reevaluating potential commercial tax structure or opportunities around different pockets of tax base. Is that something, not that we can do today, I got it, Marianne, but is that something that we can do over the next, how do we make that a high priority so that next year we're able to have a different, I'll use the word revenue, but at least a stream? Amy or Marianne, can you help me with how we make this a priority? Whether we do it or not, it's a different discussion, but at least then we understand the puts and calls, because that gets to be some real numbers. I think tonight we're going to all be very upset no matter what with this budget, because I don't think there's going to be enough to spend, and no matter what, it's going to be short. So I'm trying to figure out big picture, how do we make it better?
Thank you, Sven. And I'll add to that, whatever we do tonight, we still have to go to the state for approval on the tax increase.
And pops and the people.
And the folks and the financial town meeting. So that's what scares me the most. I mean, we may not know our answer tonight. Everybody who wants the money that they've allocated or not may not have the answer, which I hope the state passes it, but that'll send Amy into a tailspin, I'm sure, if that doesn't happen. But that's what we're here for. Mark, go ahead.
Well, I'm sorry, Mark. Can I just sort of get at least a direction or what we need to do to look at that stuff, Amy or Marianne?
So it's my understanding that the town started exploring this maybe a couple of years ago.
I think I know why.
Yeah, and I don't have anything specific as what are the steps we need to take, whether it's statutorily or anything, we need enabling legislation. I'm going to punt this to Amy to see if she knows anything specific we need to do and whether or not it will be feasible. That's something we can do next fiscal year in preparation for next year's budget cycle, because that's what I'm hearing.
Sure, and that would be, I guess, the key point to take away tonight is if this is something that you want to consider for next year, we need to start now.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
It is.
That's as many hands as I can put up.
Yeah, absolutely.
It will be a process, and it will obviously take a number of conversations. And so I would suggest you schedule it fairly soon for work sessions so that we can talk about what the real goals are and start to create a framework. The only other thing that I would add to that is that we are coming up in a revaluation year as well. So queuing all those things at once might be initially overwhelming, but actually is probably exactly the right time to think about changes like that.
And I think they make each other quite quickly.
Absolutely.
So
It's
Andre,
not that, sorry.
Andre, if we could put that on an agenda, that would be really helpful. I just think, there'll be pushback, but I think different tax structures, especially as we've got a number of large developments coming in, I think we need to look at this seriously. So I'd love to have that on the agenda, please.
Thanks. Momo? Mark?
Keith and Sven, you're not wrong. In fact, you're 100% right. It's nonsensical, if not obscene, that all these groups or businesses that negatively impact on this island are charged so little for their licensing fee and the negative byproducts that come with it. Look at just the police department, 50 grand for overtime. We know what that overtime for the most part is. It's after hours, taking care of all the byproducts of what happened the hours before that. So I welcome that conversation. I have a couple of questions on administration.
Go ahead, Mark.
First off, every year we have a line item for deer management that ranges anywhere from 15,000, almost 30,000. If we got rid of the deer, we wouldn't have to have that line item in there anymore. Secondly, contingency. That's up to 50 grand now. That's pretty substantial. Not that it's not a good idea to have a contingency fund, but it's a substantial increase over prior years. Can you explain that, Amy?
Sure.
So that's 9,000.
Just as you read that line, keep in mind that the actual numbers don't necessarily reflect what's been charged against it. Oftentimes, we will charge the expense used out of contingency in the area that it is needed. So additional legal fees will be booked against legal. I will say I fought hard to get to 50,000 mark, and I'm not going to let it go without a fight.
Did you put that in there because of potential litigation? And if so, shouldn't that be in litigation?
No, this is really the only area in the budget where particularly the council can react to something that comes up during the year, and a consultant you want to bring on board for a unforeseen project, support for a program that wasn't identified previously. And so at less than 1%, less than 0.5% of our total operating budget, it actually is not a lot of latitude for you to do the types of things that come up in our 12-month experience out here. And I think we're feeling more and more that having even a larger contingency might be more appropriate. I certainly wouldn't recommend reducing it.
Thank you, Amy.
Okay, let's go up to item 5400 on the litigation.
Mark, can we stay on contingency for a second? Because I have a question about that, and Martha does also. Hold on one second. Martha, go ahead.
No, I just wanted to be sure that it was absolutely clear, because I think sometimes people don't, because this has come up several years in a row now, and we probably should know it by now, that what Amy said, that she charges the the overages on the line item, so you show where you're actually expending and where you're expending it, which doesn't mean contingency hasn't been overexpended. It hasn't been expended. It's just shown in a different place. And I think that's the right way to do it. So you actually see where the numbers are being spent rather than kind of burying them in contingency. But it doesn't mean the money hasn't been spent if it only shows $8,000 and something else is over by 20. You really had 28,000 out of that fund. So I really support the way she does this. And that was my only comment on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Martha. So Amy, can you go back? I don't have that in front of me right now. Can you go back? So what % of the budget is in contingency?
So 50,000 on a $16.5 million budget is 0.3%.
And what's normal for a town like ours? Well, I say like ours.
You know, I haven't studied that in a while. I don't know if Marianne has an inclination. I can go take a look around. I haven't, like I said, I haven't looked recently.
Yeah, it's something I haven't looked at recently, but I do echo what Amy says. Based on the total amount of budget, the $16.5 million budget that we're presenting to you this evening, 50,000 is not a significant dollar amount. Although I can understand why some of you may think it's a significant dollar amount because it's 50,000. So I echo what Amy says. I think we should leave that at this point.
Keith, hold on a second. Sven?
Yeah, real quickly, Amy, you see it's a 0% increase year on year against sticking with contingency. At a ballpark level, because of the way you reallocate, if I go back to previous years, the 17,345, which was the 2020 number, there was a much higher contingency level there. Is that correct? Or was that the actual budget in that year? Did you not
Bear with me. No, I understand. It certainly, the budget line item was not more than 50,000. I'm actually pulling up the history to see if I can tell you what those numbers represent, what might have stayed there in the past. But.
Okay, thank you. If you do get it, that would be great. Do you have any idea what the 2021 number will actually come in at? In other words, how much of that contingency we're going to burn?
I don't believe at this point that the council has authorized use of any contingency for any specific program.
Perfect. Thank you.
So.
Go ahead, Keith. And then
Mark had the floor, please.
Yeah, if we're staying on administration under litigation, I believe strongly we're going to need some special counsel outside of our town solicitor for a couple of projects, those being the Old Harbor Triangle and mopeds. Yet we have a budget decrease this year under litigation, or only, yeah, budget decrease, or $25,000. Is that enough?
That's a good question. I'll let the bean counters figure that one out, answer that for you. Go ahead, Amy.
The only thing I can say, and I'll defer the rest to Marianne, is that this is where we would use your contingency if you needed to bring in special outside counsel that was unforeseen.
Oh, you enjoyed that.
To answer your question.
And I knew she was going to say that, so that's why I said let her go with it, because I knew what she was going to say.
Okay, so we're on the same page there. Oh, if we can go to police. Not overtime, 50 grand. I mean, this was an issue years prior to the 2 o'clock liquor license. Is it that much of an issue now to be allocating 50 grand for overtime?
If you look at the historical cost over the last few years, I mean, granted, 2018 was 35,000, 19 was 64, 20 is 60. Fiscal year 21 is on target to come in at 51,000. So to answer your question, yes, I think the 50,000 is a reasonable amount.
Can there be any change in scheduling that could save money?
think you have to keep in mind, well, a lot of time what the overtime is attributed to is when people take vacations or are out sick, we need to bring the officers in so they cover the shift. And that's going to continue to happen. Even if you change the schedule, that will continue to happen. 50,000 in overtime is not a lot of money, believe it or not.
It's a lot of money to me.
You good, Mark? Anybody else have any other questions?
Yeah, for now, thank you.
I do.
Okay. Just let me know if you have anything to say. We're screen sharing, so I can't
I
see.
have a question, Andre. It's Keith. I just would back on administration. The difference between contingency and budget reserve. If you don't mind giving me 45 seconds on that.
Go ahead. Go ahead, Keith.
Oh, I'm sorry. I don't. I'm trying to reconcile in my mind the difference between contingency and budget reserve.
Let me take a stab and see if this answers your
Where's
question or not.
Hold it. Where's budget reserve? What budget reserve are you talking about?
There is a number.
Yeah.
It's $350,000 reserve fund balance.
Oh, that's the fund balance.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
not. Okay, so that's not. You're not talking about a budget item.
No, it's just in the documents, and I'm new to this, so I was asking the question.
Well, I'm trying to figure out what I'm trying to figure out what number you're talking about, where it is.
Gotcha.
That's,
It's
what
on
page are you
page
on?
7. Page 7. The heading is reserves/transfers in.
Okay, I got
4011 is reserve land trust, which I understand. I'm just wondering what reserve fund balance $350,000 is.
Sure. So this over here is a revenue page. All of our expenditures need to be balanced out. And when things go somewhat sideways, as they did in the budget planning for fiscal year 21, we actually need to reach beyond our operating budget contingency and use the town's reserve fund balance in order to balance our budget. That's not a place we like to be,
Right.
but that was our
Right.
plan for fiscal year 21. So we went to our, if you will, our long-term reserves and planned to use those in order to balance this current year budget if necessary. And you have to plan and identify that as a revenue line item. So your 50,000 contingency is going to be just like in your household budget, leaving a little
Right.
bit of extra room. This is the dipping into your savings version of things. And so again, it's not usually a good thing. It was part of the plan for fiscal year 21. It looks like we will be able to finish the year without having to touch it, which is also great news. But that's the distinction between the two. This
Gotcha.
is planning to dip into those savings versus your annual operating contingency money.
Terrific. Thank you, Amy. That's very helpful.
Sure.
So to follow up on that question, what's, again, a percentage of the budget is 350,000. You're saying we have 350,000 in the reserve funds, right?
Sure. So when you talk about reserve funds, we as a town have a policy of targeting reserve levels of between 15 and 20% of our operating budget. That number fell below 15%. I think it was 12% at June 30th, 2020, because we had to use reserve funds in 20. We planned to use additional in 21. Doesn't look like we'll have to. And so we'll be building those reserve levels back up to fit within our target range. I don't know if we'll hit 15% at June 30th, 21, but we're moving certainly in the right direction. I will say that most communities have a lower reserve level than we do.
Yeah.
And I think you saw that in some of the actions other places had to take in the last 18 months.
Andre, if I can add.
Yeah, no, go ahead, Sven.
So one, because there are 30 people on the Zoom right now. First, I'd like to compliment Amy and the finance department because our reserves have been unbelievably well maintained. Two, the very fact that we haven't dipped into them like most towns do, which is like regularly ice cream. and therefore the reserve just becomes some spending vehicle, is critical. And when we had to dip into them for quote unquote the COVID period and sort of maintaining, I think Amy did it very conservatively. So having these reserves and maintaining the reserves, keywords, maintaining reserves, has really been, in my mind, critical to the strength of the town. And I compliment Amy on doing that. I know it looks like there's money. I mean, it's basically taking out of the long-term savings and bringing it into the household income for a little while, but at some point you got to go back to that savings account and replenish it. So thank you, Amy.
Thank you, Sven.
But I think you also need to know that spending reserve is something that's voted on at town meeting. It's not just a discretionary spending.
Just for the record, I was just asking, I wasn't suggesting that we spend any of the reserve. I just wanted to make sure I understood the vocabulary. Thank you.
Mark, go ahead.
I'd like everyone to know that it's not, there's no malice involved when I fight to try to get the budget cut down. I understand everything involved. And I also understand that this island is not inhabited by all rich people. There's a lot of people who might have been lucky enough to get a place here and now they're struggling to stay here. So when I start addressing certain costs, it's absence of malice, and it's hopefully towards keeping the big picture in mind. And that being said, I'm kind of an equal opportunity curmudgeon, so I'll address recreation. And I fully realize that there's a lot of wonderful people doing a lot of wonderful volunteer work up at the Heinz Field. But we really don't need Fenway Park, Block Island up there. It's beautiful up there. And when people come here to play soccer games, rugby games and such, they all tell me how beautiful that field is and how much better it is than anything they go to. But let's keep in mind that it comes at a cost. So if there's any way we can start cutting down the cost of maintenance up at Heinz Field, I'd like to see it. And again, I'll be the curmudgeon. I don't care.
Are you asking for us to put in a push mower in the budget for you to go mow that field?
No, but that's an awful lot of money.
I know. And to follow up with what Mark said, Mary Ann or Mamie, if we go to the state with the cap to ask to raise the cap, is there a chance they could say, look at the reserves or the contingency or whatever, the $350,000 line and say, use this?
No.
I'm going to say no.
Okay.
Yeah, they wouldn't do that.
It's I don't believe it's within their purview
Right.
to respond that way. But also the town has adopted formal policies that set those levels. And so they would be hard pressed to challenge that.
So walk me through the process if we do not get permission to raise the cap. I think that's important for everyone to know. If we went to the state and said we need to raise the cap by X amount and they say no, what would then happen? Do you get the budget back? Do we get the budget back to rework within the 4%, or what are the choices there? You're muted, by the way.
I would say, yeah, the budget comes back. What are you thinking?
A little bit depends on the timing as to whether it comes back to the council in a formal way. That would be the goal, is that we will have, by the end of the public hearing process, more concise feedback from Department of Revenue, so that we know going into the financial town meeting where we'll stand. That would give the council time to adjust what they present to the public. And if not, then we'll make some recommendations to the floor, to the public. Obviously, there are two sides. You can raise revenues and you can cut expenses. And I don't think either of those would be easy, but we would bring you some suggestions.
All right. Thank you on that.
Amy, can we get clarification? Because I'm sorry, I had a little trouble following this. I didn't get it. That how much over the cap are we? We have overrides you think qualify, is that correct?
Yes, we have, this budget includes overrides that I believe are administrative and eligible and shouldn't be viewed subjectively by Department of Revenue because it's related strictly to debt service, which is on page 22. So we're looking at a 5.9% increase in the levy, obviously 1.9% over the 4% cap. And I believe that all the debt service that is represented in that increase fits their criteria. It's all been approved by the voters, authorized in the typical ways, and is a normal part of our operating budget, but shows an extraordinary increase from one year to the next.
Thank you, Amy. Martha, you all good?
Yeah, I just thought it was important to clarify that because I don't think we haven't done this in a long time, have we?
Not since we brought the school online have we gone for an administrative override.
Thank you, Amy. Mark, go ahead.
Don't we also need a 4/5 approval by the town council to proceed?
Yes, you do. So approval of the state, approval of 4/5, the supermajority of the town council, and majority of the voters at financial town meeting.
But that's an override. That would, okay, let's back up a little bit. Because I worked this a long time ago. I'm not sure if everybody's clear on it, though. If we have, we don't need an override for the 5.9, which is really scary and I think should be out there. We need an override for anything in excess of 4 that doesn't qualify.
For the incremental difference, for the 1.9% or just over $200,000.
But you think most of that will qualify.
Yes.
So we won't actually need a voter approved. Oh, we do. I can't remember.
You do,
need a
yes.
Voter approval. We still do.
Even if you meet the specified criteria,
Okay.
you must have approval.
Yep.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
I'm going to go ahead, Sven.
Amy, I'm just sorry, percents and dollars sound different and often are. Just tell me, right now on the 1.9%, that's roughly 200, right? Is that what you just said?
Correct.
And your gut, I'm looking at the debt page here, your gut of the applicable debt service that could be taken out of that, are we talking an override of 20? 30? I mean, by the time you subtract out the debt service from that 200?
I'm not sure I'm following.
I'm not following the question either.
So in other words, right now, the 1.9% is of roughly $200,000. You mentioned that they would take debt service, or they may consider that because it's voter approved, et cetera, out of that. So it's not really 5.9%, it becomes 4.7%, or did I misunderstand?
I think maybe let me try it differently from the beginning.
Sorry.
Quickly.
Yeah.
So we are allowed to raise our taxes 4%, which is roughly $400,000.
Yep.
No questions asked.
Yep.
We need to raise, in order to support the budget that's in front of you, closer to $600,000, about 5.9%. That differential of $200,000 is an increase in debt service that should adequately meet the criteria set forth by the state for an allowable exemption.
Thank you.
Is that more clear?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, so that being said, does anybody else have any other questions? Because I'd really like to start getting into finalizing this, because I think do you all have the information you need to make a decision on the budget tonight with the questions that you've posed and the answers you've gotten? I'll start by, I'll pretty much start by saying that I think if we start giving more to certain people, we're either going to be taking from others to give, or we're going to be raising this possibly over 6%. I don't think anybody wants to go there. So I'm just wondering, I mean, like I said, I will throw it out there. I would say that I was glad to hear that there was $27,000 available. And Mark asked if it could be spent. Before I came to this meeting, I was trying to figure out ways to give, and I will say, as I told Mary Ann in the beginning, that senior advisory, fire, medical center were important topics for me personally. And I'm not choosing, I'm just saying after the year we've had, fully funding those budgets would put us at a huge thing. I don't want to really touch that personally, but I'm thinking split the 27 between the fire and medical center. And I just want to have a discussion about that. How does anybody feel about what they want to fund? Sven, go ahead.
Just sorry, Andre, but before we, 27, I'm with you. Marianne, we had talked about other line items and whether they could be decreased or not. I didn't know if you had any input on that or not, or if there were any opportunities for any line items in the community service.
That can be in the community service, that can be decreased. I'm sorry, I'm not muted. You said decrease in the community service line items?
Yeah, you and I were talking about a number of them, and I was asking about early learning center, which had been flat for so many years. I mean, just and grants, and trying to look at whether there are ways to do grants there or something like that, or any other vehicles. I'm just asking, is there any more money? Really, my question is there any more money than the 27? That was my question.
At this point, I'm going to say no. Yeah, the Early Learning Center, we've had level funded that for the past, since 2018. I would like to keep that level funded instead of reducing it going forward.
I just wanted to make sure. Sorry, Andre. Just
No, I was asking the council where you want to go with the budget from here. You have anything you want to leave it as it is? Do you want to try to give organizations more, less? You want to keep the $27,000 and don't spend it? I think basically what I was saying is that I'd like to try to split the 27 between two organizations.
I think for me, given what we've learned today from Amy and Marianne, I agree with your two priorities, Andre. I have to say, I think, you know, we've talked about things that we need to work on. In my opinion, figuring out how we better support the medical center is an essential part of what we have to do over the next several months, because, you know, I just think, you know, we all quite appropriately spend a lot of time talking about what a wonderful job the medical center does, and frankly, you know, the budget request that they've made is what that looks like. You know, I mean, it's we have a lot of uncompensated care, a lot of undercompensated care. I think there are also revenue things we need to look at in that way. You know, in that way, totally unburdened by any of the financial details or frankly the rules around it. But I think we need to figure out ways to charge people up front for things if they come in the summer and are about to leave on the next ferry and consume care from us. I mean, that really bothers me that people are able to walk away from what is a bedrock institution for us that needs a lot of community support. So, you know, again, I don't profess to be an expert here, but I'm when I say I'm disappointed in the number for health services, it is not in any way an expression of disappointment in anyone. I'm just saying that I really feel like, for me, the medical center and the volunteer fire department deserve more or need more than we're able to give, and I'm frustrated by that. But if what we have is 27,000, I'm with you, Andre. I think that's the fair way to do it.
Thank you, Keith. Mark?
Lars, are you still on? Is he still up there, Andre?
I
think so.
No, I don't believe he is.
don't see him.
I wanted to know how they were going to make up their shortfall if we didn't subsidize them.
Well, that would have been another question I would have raised to the council.
Because I was thinking maybe 10,000 for medical, 10,000 for fire, and the balance going to chamber.
2,000. I think regarding the chamber, I think we should send a letter to the tourism council asking them to fully fund this.
I do too.
I do too.
Again, that's my opinion on that. So I was going to exclude that from, and then see what happens.
I agree with that.
Michael, Convery, I see you're here. And also, we are still working on the ESSER. And I know we got that on our agenda for a letter, but I did speak with Mike over at Langevin office last week, and he said that currently Katie from his office is working with you.
Yes, I spoke with her last Thursday.
Yeah, and they're just waiting for the info request that their office sent out, to their mothership, wherever that is. So there really is no answer on that.
No, the answer that I got from the state, as I reported last Wednesday, was the state said it was up to federal. That's why I wrote the letters. And the representative at Langevin's office said they get the money to the state, and how it's appropriated is up to the state.
So that made things clearer.
Right. That's how I left it Friday, and that representative was going to get back to me. So.
Jeez. This way.
We do have an agenda item on that, and we will be sending a letter to somebody, I'd imagine. So I just wanted to let you know that I don't think that's the end of that discussion, because that's just ridiculous to me in my book.
Thank you. I appreciate the support.
No problem. I just go ahead, Steve.
I didn't mean to cut the conversation.
That's probably a good thing. Go ahead.
Amy, you're still, or Amy or Marianne, a process question. Obviously, the voters voted in. Well, first of all, just for appreciation, it seems to be the significant, like 90% of the budget's really around people, whether that's wages or insurance or all that. So I feel like we're dancing around the fringe all the time here. But Amy, the voters approved a director of public works, and that will go into a process. I know Marianne started interviewing and all that. That number in there is a full year number in the budget. And does that need to be a full year number from a legal point of view, or how does that work?
That is correct. That is a full year number. And also the building inspector is also, the building and facilities is also a full year number. I'm sorry, I think the building facilities we put a little lower, right, Amy?
You did.
We did. We put building facilities a little lower.
It is a little lower, yeah.
That's one we didn't put in as a full year.
Not a little, 25%.
Yeah, so that's what we didn't put in as a full year this year.
I think that's a constraint too that needs to be pointed out is, these are good changes to the charter.
Yeah.
However, man, do you have a number? I mean, I think I remember one of the first charter review, I asked how much this would impact the budget. Nobody could really answer that, but if they were all passed, but the ones that did pass, do you have a number as to the cost because of the charter changes that we made on this budget?
I haven't looked at it that way, but I can pull that together for the next meeting.
Well, we're looking at what, two full-time equivalents right now, right? And that number is how much for the two, just the DPW? And I think that's probably going to be the highest one. I don't have it in front of me.
The DPW, I think we budgeted 105,000 for the salary, if I'm not mistaken.
We did.
And the facilities inspector, the building facilities, we dropped, that's in,
By 16 for
yeah,
a net increase of 90, just related to the Director of Public Works.
Net increase of 90. Salary up.
Again, that's not designed to be a full year implementation.
Okay.
So
Yeah, I think, Marianne, if you could put that together as the technology and everything else, just so we have, when we go to the voters,
mhm.
we can explain. We have a good.
Yeah, Amy had put together some numbers. It'll be worth revisiting those numbers, and
All right.
we put together numbers before the FT, before the vote was taken on the proposed charter amendments.
All right. Thank
And
you.
everything financially was passed with the exception of the additional healthcare for council members.
Thank you.
We don't need it. Go ahead. Go ahead, Keith.
I as usual, will probably expose my ignorance on these matters, but I just want to ask a question about having the state for permission on this, et cetera. And I just wonder whether we can have or share some sense that in a way this is a bit of a rebasing year, that by for example, some of the wage increases are substantial and not inappropriate. I'm not complaining about those, but we are going to that by rebasing this year, going for this increase, permission to increase, we're essentially increasing our base. I know that we were frankly disadvantaged when the base got set because town government is so much different than it was when that base was set, I think. But it just occurs to me that we're sort of doing these substantial inappropriate rebasing of wages, which will establish our base going forward for when we're 4% of a higher number, for example, next year may give us more flexibility next year for some of these community support organizations, unless I'm thinking about this incorrectly, which is entirely possible.
No,
Andre?
you're pretty accurate with that, with the rebasing. As you all realize that last year we did free salary. There was a lot of things that went on with COVID. Unfortunately, with the cap, there's nothing in there as it relates to COVID because no one ever thought of something like that would be happening.
Mm-hmm.
But it might be something worth bringing up to, the state and stuff like that and see what happens. It doesn't hurt.
Okay, could I just add something to that? A cautionary note that every year there's something. And when is Broad going to come online?
It'll make its way through the tax base, probably fiscal year 23 or 24.
Okay, so we have something very, very big looming out there. There's always going to be something. We were doing this in the 80s, and it was we had huge increases because we were trying to get things in play. It's when these laws, I think I'm the only one old enough to remember this, but when this first came through, it was tied into an education. I think I mentioned this the other night, the Omnibus Tax Relief and Replacement Act, where all the schools are supposed to get 50% funding from the state. Of course, we never did. So it didn't really amount to much of anything, but it was the tax relief and we just fall off every freaking formula in the state. But I know we go through this every year and say, well, this is the year we're doing this, and every year is like this. So it's not going to because we know we have givens that we know are going to happen, and then there are others, and I think this has been brought up before. There isn't any exclusionary thing in there with charter mandated increases have already been voted on, I gather. Amy?
No, it's very, very narrow. And
I just wanted to make that point. I know.
I will say that I think the interpretation has gotten narrower as well.
It was always narrow.
But
So we're back with fusions. We just threw everything on the wall and they just approved it until, we had enough, and it was crazy.
Thank
But the
you.
numbers are so much smaller back then.
Thank you, Martha. Michael Convery, you're square in the middle of my Hollywood Squares visual here. And it's reminding me that last meeting I had a question, and I'm going to re-ask it. It has nothing to do with personnel, people, or anything. It just has a question structurally to do with the budget. And I'm just wondering about the school nurse. You never had one before. You have to fund one now. Is it because of the COVID, or I'm just trying to get an answer as to why the school needs a school nurse when there's a building with a couple of them within 50 feet. And again, I'm going to say, this has nothing to do with people. This has everything to do with the finances.
Right. So when Dr. Lunston was here, Judy Lunston was here, and I was transitioning with her 3 years ago, I asked about the school nurse because my understanding is every district has to have a superintendent, every building needs a principal, you need a special ed director, and you have to have a school nurse. And Block Island didn't have one. We had an agreement with the medical center, and I was told that there was a waiver at RIDE. I didn't turn over any rocks on that. We just kept that going. When COVID hit and we got to our reopening plan, people were hiring extra nurses and RNs because the attestation forms that needed to be collected, testing students in the building, just monitoring COVID was going to be way too much for just Christine, who's really the only one who's there full time. So we did reach out and got the part-time nurse. Since we've had the part-time nurse, it's really been proven, in my opinion, invaluable, and we really need to keep it. So it's still part-time. It's still, I think it's 15 hours a week that we're looking at, but it does a lot more. There's wellness checkups, family checkups with the kids, getting not family medical checkups, but checking in with families when kids are out, making sure kids have immunization records, dental records are up to date. It's a lot.
Perfect. Thank you. I have my answer. Appreciate it.
Oh, Andre?
Yeah, Martha, go ahead.
There may have been an old override. Override isn't the right. I'm sorry, the override in my head. Waiver back to when we had the state nurse for so long, which we don't have anymore, because the state nurse used to. I'm just remember. I've got a visual memory of the state nurse was always in the school yearbook for years and years and years as part of the faculty, and that may all just be something that happened a long time ago, and we don't have a state nurse anymore. And that may be why they never picked up on it before.
Great. All right, moving forward. Council, you want to spend $27,000, or you want to keep it and use it to reduce the budget? When you need it somewhere.
Well, we spent 25.
Sorry?
That's why we spent 25.
I'll
I mean, there are other sources for some places still to look for money.
Mark?
I'm leaning towards keeping it, not spending it.
Well,
Go ahead, Keith.
I would make a motion that we
Every time you speak, we lose you. Every time you speak, we lose you.
It's like, can you blame them?
I got it loud and clear.
What I'm trying to do is make a motion to split that 27, 13.5 to the medical center and 13.5 to the volunteer fire department.
Marion, is that the exact dollar amount? I'm not asking for your opinion. I'm just asking if that was the correct dollar amount.
That's correct. Yeah, it's 27,000. Yeah, let me double check.
Andre, if you want to second it, go ahead, or I will.
I just want to make sure that I'm just trying to get a sense as to what the council wants to do. Is that all I see?
second
Okay, a motion has been made and seconded for discussion. I have Sandra Kelly. Go ahead, Marion.
It's 27,386, but I recommend you stay with the 13.5 and the 13.5 because it makes life easy for Amy and I.
Yes.
I see Sandra Kelly, you have your hand up.
I do, Andre.
Oh, go ahead.
Thank you for taking my call. I understand that you're not going to be funding us any further than what was requested. And I do want to thank you for that. And just let you know that we'll be back next year, and don't forget us.
Marianne, can you explain the increase? Thank you so much, Sandy. Marianne, can you explain? I mean, there is an increase in that budget, right? It's not a level funding. And
Did I just lose you?
no, Marion Crawford, just Marion looking for paperwork. I was going to ask for.
Something happened.
We did increase that budget. Hang on. By $3,700. It was a 16% increase.
Thank you. Motion been made and seconded. Is there any comments from anywhere? Council?
Yeah, I have one.
I think, go ahead. Does Pete RSTBI? Renwick Tweedy, did you have your hand up? And you're muted if you did. Hang on, Sven.
Yes, I did. I just wanted to suggest that if you don't spend that 27,000 or whatever the number was, it means, from my perspective, you take the money out of the taxpayers' pockets and you just increase your contingency fund. So I don't see any point in doing that if your contingency is sufficient.
So you're asking, yeah. There was a motion made and seconded to split it between the fire and rescue and medical center.
Right. Thank you.
You're welcome. Sven, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm sorry, it's a motherhood statement, but I hope and I trust that everybody else who's not getting an increase understands that the levels are just so low. And we have been debating now for days on end how to get more blood from the stone. And I think we talked about hopefully getting some better revenue opportunities for next year. And so those, nobody's going to be happy with this budget. Let's hope the state approves it, and let's hope the taxpayers do. But I guess I'm just saying that we're all trying as hard as we can to support all of our critical community centers and organizations, as well as the town itself. So I'm sorry it's a motherhood, but I had to say it.
No one's ever voting for you again, Sven, because of this budget. So
no, we'll have a chance to.
We're all done. Mark, go ahead.
I guess most people would think this is a slam dunk for me because I've been associated with both of those wonderful groups for quite some time. But my allegiance has to be the taxpayers. And it might not seem like much, but 100 pennies still makes $1. So I just know that that's why I'm voting the way I'm voting.
Thank you, Mark. I think that's understood. That's why I asked what your preference was. Keep it, or spend it, or take it from somebody else. And I didn't want to come to this meeting shifting money around and taking from somebody else. I think the staff did a great job, putting this together. It's just that Here we are. All right, motion been made and seconded. I see no more hands up. All those in favor, Martha?
Oh, Andre, I've been trying to talk. I'm sorry. I was on mute.
Oh, sorry.
All I was going to say is my heart is with Mark. I would go 10-10. I can't support the motion as presented.
10-10.
I'm voting no.
Okay, so 10, well, we can have this discussion. 10-10, and that's 20. And anything with that other 5?
No, that's the whole point. No.
Okay, thank you.
But there are some other things we need to look at, but I don't think this is the appropriate time to talk about them.
Okay. If it's dealing with the budget and it would help, feel free. No?
Well, it's already been mentioned, approaching, getting together tourism. I do know there are some other revenue sources out there that haven't been tapped yet, but that's
For the town? For the town or organizations?
for organizations.
Okay. And, okay.
But I can't get any further into it. I've had some conversations with some officers. I'm sorry to be so cryptic.
Yeah, well, God, I don't have my universal decoder here, Martha, but I'll try to, we'll figure it out. Sven, go ahead.
Just a quick question, I guess, to Amy or Marianne. Before we talked about a four-fifths vote at the council level. Is that for the budget in total, or was that what was that vote for as we move to the state?
It's the total budget.
That was total. I'm just making sure that was total budget, not any.
That's correct, right, Amy? Total budget?
I want to reserve the right that there may be a separate question specific to the tax override.
Override, okay.
Because the total budget doesn't necessarily identify that fact.
But it's not on this
Let me
motion.
rephrase it. So it's not about this vote.
It's not about this motion, no.
I was double checking before we, yep, got it.
Motion made and seconded. Any other questions? Seeing none from the public, none from council. All those in favor? Martha was a no. Mark?
No.
No. Keith?
Yes.
And Sven?
Yes.
And I approve this motion. Motion carries 3-2. Okay. Any other budget discussions? Marianne, anything else to bring to us? Amy?
Not at this point. We have a public hearing on April 5th and 7th, and we'll come forward with the warrant soon after that. I'll get you documentation as it relates to potential debt that we would like to present in the warrant.
And you, I'm sorry, go ahead. I cut you off.
No, that's it.
Okay. And you
Amy has something to add. I shouldn't talk about the schedule. Leave it to.
No, the schedule's good. Just to let everyone know that we will release clean, revised versions of the budget in advance of the public hearing, probably in the next day or two.
Perfect. And we don't see any need to have any, I know we don't, but I just want to ask, we don't see any need to have any more work sessions? I don't see you. I'm on the, I got documents in front of me. We're all good with work sessions. Okay. Oh, is there a hand up? Chris Hobie. Go ahead, Chris. And Chris Hobie. He's on mute. *6.
Gotcha, buddy.
There we go.
Hey, I just want to, I can look on the look on your faces and your body language. You guys have been working this really hard, and I can tell there was not much room in there. And I speak for the department and myself. Thank you for what you were able to get us. Much appreciated. And that's what I got on that. And my next question is on the capital budget process. When would that be started?
Marianne. Amy. Amy.
We already discussed the capital, I think, if I'm not mistaken.
That was our first night. Would you have any specific questions on your capital or the capital in general?
Well, our capital budget we had in there a mill 6, a mill 3 for aerial truck, and 300,000 for an ambulance. I didn't know where we sat with that.
Mary or Amy? Mary Ann or Amy?
Sure. I don't know. I don't know if everyone has sort of the capital plan, which is an 8-year program. It is on the town's website with some of the other documents. And so what is proposed for funding for fiscal year 22 for fire and rescue does bring forward 1.3 million related to the engine. And then it defers the 300 for rescue to 2023. So that's what's the current program is related to fire and rescue.
Okay.
And so when the town manager mentioned bringing forward some borrowing questions, the fire engine would be presumably included in that discussion.
Okay. So as this time, that's moving forward, I assume.
I think that's fair to say. And I would add that we're also looking at some other funding options for that to the extent that we might be able to find them.
I can get you on the phone later because the company we're working with has, I'm sure you're the professional, no doubt, but they have some options also maybe you would be interested in. So thank you.
And Andre?
Go ahead.
Okay, Chris, can I urge you to maybe approach different organizations, funding organizations for the training, because you know how strongly I feel about it and how incredibly impressed I am, whether that would be RUSA or other groups for training, because my gut says there may be dollars available.
Absolutely. We will continue to do that, and we'll do that, and we will definitely keep our training up to a high level, and I can promise you that, and the chief can promise you that also.
Thank you so much. Sorry.
Thank you.
Amy just got a hug. We saw it. You can come back.
She really wanted that ladder truck, the aerial truck.
I don't know who that was, but
Hope it wasn't Chris Hobie.
no. We're still.
Hey, Andre, it's Lars. I'm still here. If anybody has anything for me. Hey, Andre.
Yes, Lars.
Hi, I'm here. If anybody has anything for me.
Thank you, Lars. I was just going to bring that up while we're still discussing budget. I'll make a motion that we send a letter to the Tourism Council asking them to fully fund the request of the chamber director.
Second for discussion.
Are you looking for the chamber or are you looking for the?
I think that LLC.
Visitor Center LLC. Yes. So I'll rework that. I'll make a motion to send a letter to the Tourism Council to fully fund the request of the Visitor Center LLC as presented by the director of the chamber. Seconded by Sven, maybe? Yeah, I'm sorry, you didn't re-second. Okay. And
wait a minute, Andre, I'm sorry. Can you say that one more time?
I made a motion to send a letter to the Tourism Council to ask them to fully fund you for your request that you asked for. Sven has seconded.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
So we're in the discussion part of that motion. And Sven, go ahead.
Yeah, Lars, can you help us just the technical term of the group, and are you a director of that group?
I am. I'm the director of the group, Visitor Center LLC. It's we're on the register of the Secretary of State. We have an employee identification number, and we have a bank account that's opened at the Washington Trust.
Thank you.
Any other questions on that? No questions? I see a hand is up. 486-9660. Oh, yep, somebody. Go ahead.
Hey, it's Jess Willie.
Hey, Jess Willie.
I apologize. I was flying earlier, but I have gotten numerous phone calls and messages. I understand there might be some questions for me. And if I can answer any questions at this time, I'm sorry I was delayed, but I'd be happy to answer them if I can.
Does anybody have any questions for Jessica Willey, Tourism Director? I'm sorry, I lost my screen because of, I don't see any council member. Oh, here we go. Any questions for Jessica Willey? Mark, you're muted.
Jess, I think we all agree we all want to get together soon for a meeting.
With tourism.
Fantastic. Yeah, I've been asking to get on a town council agenda for a while, and I'm more than happy to. We'd love to all sit down and, you know, we all work together great. So I did hear a couple comments that sounded like you all, especially the town council, thinks that the Chamber and Tourism Council don't get along and work together. And I can assure you that that is not the case. And you all perpetuating that discussion is certainly not helping anything. So happy to sit down and get together and all work to row the boat in the same direction for once.
Anybody else?
Yes, I completely concur. Thanks, Jess.
Anybody have any other questions for Jessica Willey? No questions. Okay.
Great, thanks.
You're welcome. Okay, congratulations. I think we're done with our budget. Second item on the agenda is discuss and act on a letter of support regarding federal funding.
Andre?
Oh, wait a minute. Mark's here.
Can I just wrap up the whole budget thing?
Yeah, you have a motion on the floor, Andre.
Oh, right. A motion on the floor to send a letter to the Tourism Council to request they fully fund the requests of the Visitor Center LLC as outlined in the Chamber Director's letter. Seconded by Sven. All those in favor? Martha?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
Sven?
Aye.
And Keith?
Yes.
And I approve. Motion carries 5-0. Sorry about that. Okay. Mark, do you have any questions on the budget?
Let me just put a nice big bow on the end of this budget discussion here. I'd just like to applaud and thank so many, in fact, the overwhelming majority of our town employees. And I hate to mention anybody in particular because I'll miss so many wonderful people, but the staff here at Town Hall, they should all have roller skates on for the way they just hustle around here and do such great work. The finance department, I've already said volumes about how wonderful they are. The rec department, boy, are we getting our money's worth with our employees there. And the highways, I mean, these are just some examples. That staff on the highways department, they don't finish a job and then sit around on recliners until someone tells them to do something else. They're constantly thinking of more things to do and doing them. So obviously, Adrian taught Mike right, and Mike's telling his staff right. So, and to wrap it all up, we have terrific employees working for the town.
Concur. Thank you. Anybody else want to comment?
Andre, I'm sorry. It's Lars again.
Yeah. Hey, Lars.
Hi. I'm just curious about the wording of your motion. Can that be read back to me?
Millie.
Sure.
Thank you, Millie.
You're welcome. Okay. Mr. Boudreau moved to send a letter to the Tourism Council requesting they fully fund the request of the Director of the Visitor Center LLC for funding the visitors ambassadors as outlined in the director's letter.
Okay, as outlined. I heard the word as directed or request. Okay, that's fine. Yes, because we did not. Okay, thank you. I just want to make sure. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it. Thank you, everybody.
You're welcome, Lars. Appreciate it. All right. Second item on the agenda. Discuss and act on a letter of support regarding federal funding ESSER2 elementary and secondary school emergency relief funds in the American Rescue Plan for the Block Island School. We have those letters that Michael Convery sent to the various representatives. I believe Senator Whitehouse, and Jim Langevin, and Senator Reed have received these letters. I would make a motion to support the letters of the Superintendent Convery to these organizations, to these representatives and senators and representatives, based on exactly what, Michael has outlined in his letter. Well, you need a motion, don't you? Was that a regular motion? Millie, was that a motion?
Yes, you did make a motion.
Motion.
Andre?
Go ahead, Martha.
I'll second that if you can change it from letter to request.
Requests. Absolutely. Do you need me to read that motion back, Millie?
Please.
Yes, please.
Okay, so I will make a motion to send a letter to Senator Whitehouse, Senator Reed, and Representative Jim Langevin in support of the request of Superintendent Convery's already referenced letters, I guess. How do you refer to that?
Letters of significant date.
Letters dated. I have them right in front of me. Hang on. March, I think. Hang on, let me get them. I just had them in front of me. Dated March 22nd, 2021. I'm laughing, but Millie, you got that?
I do, thank you.
Thank you. Can you read it back for a second so the counselors know?
Okay. Mr. Boudreau moved to send a letter to the U.S. Representative Jim Langevin, U.S. Senator Jack Reed, and U.S. Senator Sheldon Whitehouse in support of the request of Superintendent Convery's letter dated March 22nd, 2021. And I assume we can just add regarding
ESSE.
ESSER2 funding and the American Rescue Plan.
Michael, is that good enough for you?
That's great. Thank you very much.
I just want to make sure we've covered everything.
Yes, that hopefully we'll get a response.
Andre, could you add CCs to our state legislative delegation, please? Since there is a bit of a,
No.
It's the feds who make the decision. It's the state who makes the decision. I'd like to reserve our right to either use them as advocates with our federal delegation or to go with them and follow up if in fact this is a decision that is being made by SDE.
I will
amend, or whatever it is.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Keith. I'll amend the motion to include a courtesy copy sent to Representative Blake Filippi and Senator Susan Sosnowski.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'll second. Do you need a second?
Martha did.
I think Martha.
Oh, great. Sorry.
I second.
Sorry about
Yeah,
that.
I seconded.
So all those in favor of the motion? Martha? I'll take
Autumn
that.
votes yes.
Yeah, I
That's,
did.
oh, you call on me. That's not.
I did.
Dog, it is with dog.
Millie,
I
Millie,
thought you
hold on.
called on Mark.
Hold on. Millie has a question.
I just want to point out that you just made a motion to amend a motion. So you'll need to vote on that motion first, and then you're going to call the amended motion to the floor.
Okay,
Did you
so
amend it?
I amended it to include what you had asked for, Martha, the request, and I also amended it to include CCing Susan and Blake. So all those in favor of the original motion? Keith?
Yes.
And Sven's good. Mark?
Aye.
And Martha?
Do we already vote on the amendment? Aye.
No, we're going to vote on that now, right, Millie?
No, you vote on, no, you vote on the amendment first.
Yeah, you have to start with the amendment first. You have to vote on the amendment, and then once you determine what motion you're voting on, you then vote on that motion.
Apologize.
Thank
you.
That's why it's clean. Just withdraw and start over again.
I'm just going to withdraw both of those motions and start over again. All right. I will, I didn't write it down.
I'm sorry, technically, Millie, is that okay? Because we did vote.
It is improper vote.
Thank you, because we, okay, good, fine, I don't care.
Okay, so I will make a motion to send a letter to Representative Langevin, Senator Whitehouse, and Senator Reed in support of the letters dated, here we go again, March 22nd, 2021, by Superintendent Michael Convery with regards to ESSER funding, and also additional funding from the American Recovery Act, ESSER 3 funding, in support of Michael Convery's letter, and a courtesy copy sent to our representatives, Susan Cisnowski and Representative Blake Filippi. How's that sound? Millie, is that clearer?
Yes.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, Martha. Motion's been made and seconded. Martha?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
Sven?
Aye.
Keith? Keith, do you approve? Yes, okay.
Yes.
And I also, motion carries 5-0. Thank you. All right, next item on our agenda. Here we go. I got multiple screens open, so just bear with me for a second. Clerks. Okay, next item on the agenda. Discuss and act on an email from Margie Cummings re the appointment of Chris Willey to the planning board. I have that in front of me. Is Margie Cummings here? Is Margie Cummings in here? Is anybody from, oh, I see a hand up. 787-8394. Unmute yourself and identify. 787-8394. We just went from, okay.
Hi, this is Margie.
Hi, Margie. How are you today?
I'm great. How are you guys doing?
Good. We're good. We got the budget over with, and we just lost about 20 people.
Congratulations on a budget. Having done that for planning board a number of years, I know how hard it is. So my hearty congratulations.
Okay. Thank you so much. All right. So we have a letter from you here requesting that we keep Sam Bird and through April, and I'm just going.
Yes.
All right. I'm just going to read it for the council. I have it in front of me because I can get the thing out of it. So it says, Town Council, we need clarification regarding the appointment of Chris Willey to the planning board. The planning board and staff had been operating under a plan that Sam Bird would remain on the planning board through April to complete action on several projects that would benefit from his expertise. Is there any way Chris can start his term in May, and which would allow Sam to complete his projects? Chris was appointed last Wednesday without either Sam, Jen Brady, or I knowing about this until after the fact. We were not aware that action would be taken at this time, since we believe Sam would be remaining on the planning board until the end of April, and nowhere on the agenda is an appointment to the planning board mentioned. I want to urge you to set up a system whereby people and/or committees on the agenda are notified ahead of time to avoid confusion. So, do you, like, my question is, do you, with Chris coming in, I mean, without Sam, I know Chris wouldn't be able to vote because he hadn't been part. Is that true?
Yes, he has not been part of the discussion that's been ongoing for the last approximately 6 months.
Are you going to have quorum issues with Chris?
There's a yes and a no answer. If somebody got sick or had to be out of town on an emergency or something, yes, I could have a quorum issue. So that is definitely a possibility.
All right. And So point is mentioned. All right. So you talk about.
So, by the way, Chris is not upset with this. He is more than happy to wait, 6, 8 weeks, whatever it is. And so I would strongly urge you all to support putting Sam back on the planning board for several weeks and then returning Chris at a later date.
Okay. And you also had some issues because we also have, that's next on our agenda. So,
yeah, all I was thinking is that just to keep this confusion from happening again, if there was some procedure whereby anybody who was listed on the agenda was notified or sent an agenda and told that they were going to be involved, that kind of thing would have prevented this from happening. Excuse me. So that we would have had time to call and say, hey, Sam really hasn't resigned and we're not quite ready to have him replaced. So it's just a request to prevent this from happening again down the road.
right. And I think coming from my point of view, I was, there were 3 people who wanted to sit on that and we didn't know, when Sam was leaving. We didn't have a request from the planning board saying April. April only came up after we appointed Chris, and that's when we learned about April. So, I mean, that's why that appointment is there.
Like I said, there was confusion on all parts, because when Sam had sent his original letter, then withdrew it last fall, he then was talking about April, but I don't know whether that got conveyed to you all or not. That's why I'm saying that I think there was a confusion, and my only interest is getting Sam back on the board for a few weeks and having you guys put some kind of a simple policy in place so that it doesn't happen to somebody else down the road.
Okay. I don't believe we did anything wrong here, but I'm going to let Millie talk to the policy wise of this, because I think what we did was we had someone was saying they didn't want to be back on the board. And then we advertised it for a month. We had 3 names that wanted to be in there. So I'm not sure which policy you feel as though we went awry of.
My policy has nothing to do with that. My policy is notifying a person or a committee if they're going to appear on your agenda so that they could be prepared to do so.
They were on the agenda for.
It said committees. It did not say planning board, so which is why none of us knew about it. And since we thought Sam was on the committee, we had never occurred to us that somebody was going to be appointed that night.
Millie?
And I can say that it was not listed specifically on the agenda as planning board. And we did discuss that after the fact, both Andrea and Marianne and I. And so we will do our best, or we will in the future do our best to list all those committees that may potentially either have a vacancy or potentially be appointed. But we've never.
Excellent. I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, but as far as notifying each person and each that might not necessarily fit into where we can go with this.
Oh.
Okay, well, I've got a question.
Martha, go ahead.
In the council packet, we've had for months now, probably years, a list of whatever boards and committees have an opening, and that's been part of the packet. Isn't that on Clerkbase?
Yes, it was.
Or is
on
it not?
No, it was on Clerkbase.
So it was out there.
Correct.
Okay, I think there was some confusion about. I am concerned about this whole issue of. Are we still talking about policy? Or are we on to the other specifics? If we're still talking about policy, I'll let the rest of it go.
Go ahead, Martha. Whatever you need to say.
Well, my question was, and if you have a quorum absent somebody not being there, I mean, you can always say, well, we might not have a quorum, and that could just go on forever. There has to, no way I would consider this unless it was a finite term.
Thank you, Martha.
And you can't do that because you don't know. I just don't think we did anything wrong.
Okay. Mark.
I guess I'll just state the obvious. probably the same question everybody listening in is asking. If we have someone gracious enough to delay his position for doing the right thing, let's move on. Let's move on the request.
I'm not sure you can because you weren't at that meeting, but I'll leave that up to Millie or somebody like that. Because you didn't vote on this.
Correct.
Are we going to move a reconsideration, or are we just going to make a motion that Chris's appointment is effective whatever May 1st? I have no idea what the right date is, but I'm just curious procedurally how we would operationalize this.
I believe, I don't know, Millie. I'll let the clerk answer that.
We had initially discussed, or we initially planned agenda rescinding the vote. Off the top of my head, Keith, seems like amending his start date might be appropriate, but
Might be a cleaner way just to do it. And what's
to rescind.
what's the right date, Margie? Is it April 15th? Is it April 16th? Is it May 1st?
Let's do May 1st so that we have enough time to get this done, because if we had to have a special meeting, we could do that.
Because I do agree with Martha that I think having a finite date might impose some external discipline on a lot of this stuff. So I'm in for May 1st.
So
That's
Millie,
fine. We can work with that.
Go ahead, Sven.
Two things. Millie, I agree 100% with your concerns about notifying people. Maybe it's just the
We lost you, Sven. We lost you, Sven. Sven, you're frozen.
More manageable. Oh,
Sven, you're frozen.
okay. Am I good now?
Yes.
Hello.
Yep, go ahead.
Mike back.
You're good.
Okay, sorry about that. I apologize. I was responding to Millie's comment, which I think is right on, which is, not the responsibility to notify people, but wondering if notifying in the future the clerks of those groups, whatever group it may be, or if there is a clerk of that group, and maybe that's a way to make it simpler so it stays within staff. And I'm in, as long as I tried to get hold of Chris, but I couldn't. But as long as he's comfortable with this, I do support a May 1st restart date.
Okay, so Millie, what, we don't have to, I'm just trying to do this legally. Can we do that without rescinding the vote?
I think you would just be making a motion to, and it's been agended to discuss and act on the appointment. So I think you would just be making a motion to amend his start date.
And Mark can participate.
Because it's a separate motion, it wouldn't be an action of rescinding.
Okay, so that if we did that, that would make the next item on the agenda moot.
Correct.
Or it is the next item on the agenda.
It's to, we're just talking about Margie's letter right now.
No, I know, but basically what we've done is we've morphed into the next item of the agenda. So really we're on that agenda item theoretically.
Anybody want to make a motion?
Sure. I make a motion to.
If I'm still on, because I got kicked off.
Yeah, you're out. We can't hear you. Oh, you're muted now. Unmute and you'll be good, I think.
Me.
Keith?
I don't get any more flack about not being on screen when this doesn't happen to me.
Good one, Martha.
I think we should.
This is the other tech wizard on the council.
Martha, I'm going to put on the next agenda that we have pictures instead of just blank screens for the for our Zoom we're all going to get together and
But
we're all going to
pictures
vote.
of the people.
We're all going
not
to
at
vote
all.
as to what picture is best for everybody. And
So I'll send you one.
I'm
You
leaning,
like choosing.
I'm leaning toward the portrait at the barn.
So Sven, I'm sorry, this is Millie. You began a motion and then that something got a little waylaid.
I did, but I thought Keith was, so I thought we were overlapping each other, so I went silent.
No, my internet cut out for most of that conversation, so I didn't, but I mean, I think, I don't know who wants to make it, but I think the motion is basically to make Chris Willie's appointment to the Planning Commission effective May 15th.
May 1st.
Excuse me, May 1st, sorry. It's in April.
Mark, do you have a question? Oh, anyway, go ahead.
For a process, I second.
Mark, do you have a question?
Nope.
All those in favor? Mark,
Aye.
Keith,
Yes.
Sven.
I'm
voting no. Martha?
I'm going to vote in favor based on the representation that Chris is okay with this. I would also urge Chris Willie to attend meetings prior to his actually being on the board, just to get a feel for what's going on.
So your vote is yes?
Yeah, my vote's yes.
Okay. Motion carries 4-1. Next item on the agenda is moot. So
Thank you very much, guys.
you're welcome. And hold on. Next item on the agenda is a moot point, and I guess we are going to. Hold on a second. I'm flipping through my clerk base, and next item on the agenda is review of Mary Ann, and this item could go into closed session. Mary Ann, are you requesting that this go into closed session?
Yes, I am.
All right. Go ahead, Sven.
I'm sorry, Marianne and Amy, are we had discussed reviewing the capital plan, and you had mentioned that earlier, capital budget, excuse me. I'm very happy to delay it till the next meeting, but I really would like to do that. I'd written a letter that you referenced earlier, Marianne, on a while ago, and just I think I'd love to revisit that. And when can we do that? Really, my question.
We could have done earlier.
Why don't we, put it on a council agenda on April 5th? When's the first public hearing on the budget? The public hearing is on April 5th. You want to put it then? Amy has left the meeting.
I'm happy to put it then, maybe at the beginning. There were some items that
Okay.
I think maybe I didn't copy everybody, Marianne, but if you could send that out to everybody. If
Sure.
you feel it's appropriate, and maybe others can chime in, but it was not about the operating budget. It was around the capital budget, and
It was on the 8-year capital.
Yes.
Right, it was the 8-year capital.
Yes, and it was, you want me to resend it to you? No.
No, I
We all-
have it.
You mentioned it earlier and didn't bring it up under the agenda item, so I forgot about it, so I apologize.
No, it's fine. So we can do it April 5th, is that okay timing wise for the public meeting, or?
Well, we'll do it and then open the public meeting, try to keep the conversation limited to just that item. Especially if it's the long-term capital. Because as I said, that's nothing more than a planning document.
Yes, and the only comment or concern was that I did have some thoughts about next year's capital. So would that go into the budget and affect it, or not?
When you say next year capital, what are you referring to?
2022. I mean, so in my note to you, then there were items that I wanted to suggested, I guess. But let's discuss it on the 5th and make that the first item if we can, and it can be very quick, or if it's not quick, that means it's important and should be discussed.
Okay, we'll do that and put the public hearing second.
Thank you. Thank you, Andre. Sorry, everybody.
I didn't say anything. I was muted. All right, so next item on the agenda is 6-month performance review of the town manager. This discussion may be held in closed session pursuant to Rhode Island General Law 42-46-5A1 for the discussion of job performance, character, or physical or mental health of a person or persons, provided that such person or persons affected shall be notified in advance in writing and advised that they may require that the discussion be held in an open meeting. Mary Ann has indicated that she wants this to be in a closed session environment. So with that, I'll make a motion that we go into closed session and discuss the previous topic. All those in favor? Second? Is there a second from anyone?
Second.
Seconded by Keith. All those in favor? Martha?
Aye.
And Sven?
Ben, yes.
Mark? He's muted. Mark, you good with that? Raise your hand.
Yeah.
All right, thank you. And Keith?
You bet.
I'm in favor. Motion carries 5-0. If we have anything to report, we will report it when we come out of closed session. Thank you, everybody, for coming and participating in our budget hearings over the past couple of weeks. It's much appreciated, and I suppose we'll see you all at the public hearing. Mark?
Millie, can you send me that link for close, please?
Beautiful. All right,
great.
We'll see you on the closed session.
Thanks.
Millie, just let me know when we have everybody.
Looks like everybody's here. You can go forward.
Okay, thank you everybody for waiting. I would like to announce in the matter of the Mary Ann Crawford's 6-month review. Oh, hold on, she's not here.
Good. No. Oh, connected.
She's there.
Mary Ann, do we got you? Yes, she's here. Okay. I'd like to, in the matter of Mary Ann Crawford's 6-month review, I'd like to announce that one motion was made, and I'll repeat the motion. Keith?
Do you want me to repeat the motion, or is that right?
Yes.
I'm sorry. Okay. I make a motion to increase the town manager's salary from salary level 15 to salary level 16, which is an increase to $135,387.02.
That motion carried. All in favor? Mr. Emmanuel, Mr. Reesum, Ms. Ball, myself, and Mr. Stover all voted in the affirmative on that motion. Does anybody have any questions? Hearing none, seeing none from the public, I will make a motion to adjourn this meeting.
Second.
Seconded by Sven. All those in favor? Martha?
Aye.
And Mark?
Aye.
Sven?
Aye.
Keith Stover?
Yes.
Yes. I approve too. Motion carries unanimously. We'll see you on April 5th, I believe. All right. Have a great night.
Thanks everybody. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.